So I'm logging into the URL, and today we'll discuss about the source properties. We'll discuss about source properties, and we'll discuss about loading source transformation, flat files, databases, filter, sorter, aggregate conditions, removal of duplicates. That these are the things that are planned for today. And to begin with, let me do a recap again. Like you need to log into the administrator services, and the administrator service, you have to make sure the secure agent is up and running, and also you need to create your connections. So I hope everyone has created the connections. If you have not done, please refer to my recording and you can do it. If you're not aware how to do it, please complete your connections. So the moment you log into the administrator, you need to go to your runtime environments and make sure your local secure agent is up and running. Okay, so if you just click on the local secure agent, you should be able to verify your services should be up and running. Fine. Any questions from anyone on this before I move on?
No.
Okay. Yeah. Someone is asking something?
Yeah, so Shiva, I think I missed that. Yesterday you talk about mass integration, ODI data, alloc and all, right? Like the services at the bottom.
Yeah, correct. See, these are the
They have
services.
the recording also, right? So I can go through the recording and get to know, right?
Yeah, you can go through the recording in the interest of the time, right? In the interest of the time, I'll continue with the topics for today. We have completed the session yesterday where we have, we have seen how to download a secure agent and how to install it, and how do you configure your services and make sure they're up and running. Okay, so let me get started.
Did you share the syllabus also? Yesterday?
Yeah, I think the organizer has already shared the recording with everyone. Whoever has attended yesterday's session, I think you all got the recording. If you have not received,
no, I did not receive that. Maybe I'll double check with them. Ask them for the recording.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let's get started. This is the interface of the data integration service, and let me give you a walkthrough about this entire dashboard. So this is called the entire dashboard, where you would see the overview of the runtime environments, connections, projects, folders, and uh, and runtime environments here, my jobs, and the recent assets that you've run. You get the entire information. So this is kind of a dashboard where you would see all these details in a quick glance. So the first thing what we do is we need to create a project, right? So what we do is we have something called Explore. We click on the Explore, and you get a default project. When you enable your free trial account, you get a default project. So you create a new project. For example, I create a project as IICS. Okay, IICS, let's say CDI training. This is my project name. Just a minute. So just create a project like IICS CDI training, and inside the project you can create a folder. We can create a folder, click on new folder, and just give a folder name as, let's say, training. Okay, now we will we'll start our development work in this folder, which is pointing to IICS CDA training, which is a project. Under the project, you have a folder. So this is something similar like you are in Power Center, where you create a folder in repository manager, right? And you have all your assets. So these are all called, the moment you create something, they're all your assets. So you need to click on new. The moment you click on new, you get this dialog box where you get a different options like tasks, mappings, maplets, task flows, and components. So to begin with, we'll click on the mappings and click on create mapping. So this is our first mapping that we are doing. So you get a mapping canvas. This is called a mapping canvas where you have a source and target shape. By default, you get a source and target. So the first thing what we are trying to do is we would create a mapping uh, to understand the source properties. So let's create a mapping and we'll just give a name as m underscore Oracle. Let's say, I'll be working on employees, right? I'll just give a name as employees load as a mapping name. And I just save this so that my mapping name gets saved. And if you look at this, you get a prompt saying mapping was saved successfully. And the next thing what you do is you go to source and you maximize this and click on your source again. And you have to select your connection. So for example, I want to create a new connection, right? So I don't have the connection listed. I can only see there are 3 connections here. One is a flat file connection, other one is a Salesforce connection, and the next one is a Scott connection. So what we need to do, if you need to create a new connection, click on new connection here, and you can configure a new connection itself. Like for example, I want to just create a new connection as connection underscore Oracle SRC INFA. That is my schema name that I have. So I'm just giving a name as SRC INFA Oracle connection. And click on the select option, select your Oracle. And you need to choose your local secure agent group, username and password, your local host, service name, and you need to provide your code page that is taken default. So just click on test. The connection should pass as Informatica, IICS data integration is talking to the Oracle instance and establishing a connection so that we can import the tables. So you get a prompt. This test for the connection was successful. So you just click on OK. So you can create your connections on the fly, and you can even create your connections in your administrator page. So we just created one connection, and you can see those connections, that connection that we just created here in the administrator service.
Ravi.
Okay, got it?
Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah, Shiva, I can see there's an option code page. Sometimes I can see this is like UTF-8 and sometimes it's something else.
Yeah.
What is the difference between UTF-8 and some other specific code?
Yeah, code page is actually the language that it actually processed. Like it depends on the different types of sources that we would work on. Generally, UTF-8 is a encoding is typically to handle special characters, or to have a Unicode standard. We have ASCII and Unicode. Actually, we have 2 types of code pages. That is for more about the data, for character encoding, I can say. Yeah. Okay, that's about more about the data. And let's move on, and we'll click on select object.
Shiva, before you move
So
on,
I'm
just have a quick question.
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Shiva, do we have any separate runtime environment that needs to be created for UTF-8? Because in Power Center, we have a dedicated ETLs where we have integration defined, so that all these UTF related ETL stuff we will be assigning those workflows to different integration service which UTF works on. So likewise, do we have any such
Okay.
specifications in IICS, Shiva?
Not required. That is not required in Informatica Cloud. You just need to have one runtime environment, and it is not dedicated to any specific
Okay.
code page. Like in the case of Power Center integration service, we create integration service for MS Windows Latin, or you create a separate integration service for UTF-8. You don't need it for IICS. What
Okay.
you need is you just need to create one secure agent that would take
Okay.
care of everything.
So in short, all fall under one umbrella, which is local security, and there is no specifications for the Unicode or
That's
ASCII
correct.
code.
Yeah, that's
Thanks.
correct. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we configured a connection, and we are picking up an object here. So I'm going to pick this object, which is my employees table. Employees, I'll select my employees table. And the moment I select my employees table, you can also preview the data to see the data. And this is going to display that information. So what we did, we have taken that connection here, and and I would also recommend everyone to work on incognito mode, in Chrome. That would ensure, your browser is faster compared to your local Chrome. So open all your services in incognito mode and click on preview data. If you click on preview data here, you'd be able to see the data under your employees table. Just in case if if you notice any slowness, probably you just this doesn't the incognito mode doesn't save any historical information, but again, cookies is something that has to be cleared, just in case if you are seeing any slowness. So this is showing up the data that we have in the employees table. This is how it comes. And you have query options here. For example, you want to put a filter in the query option. You can just click on filter here and just click on add. Let's say you want to filter something from the state. State is equal to some value. Like, you want to just to select star from employees. Let's say when I just do a select star from employees, I get the data where state belonging to some state, a HI or DE or something like that. I want to filter all HI states. So I can just put a value here as HI. You don't have to put it in single quotes. Just click on OK. And that is default taken in single quotes. If you want to sort the data, click on sort again. And let's say you want to sort it with the employee ID, or you want to sort with job ID. Click on plus, and you select your employees job ID. And remember, this is a default ascending option here, given here in this query options. Okay. And if you go to the advanced properties, you would see that pre-SQL, post-SQL, and SQL override, right? Pre-SQL, post-SQL, and SQL override. Pre-SQL is where you have some values that you want to run. You want to have a query, or you want to insert some values. For example, I want to insert some values, like I want to just insert a row, like something like this, insert into employees. So I just have to provide my schema name here, src infa dot employees. Okay. Uh, Values with some values here. I want to insert, I can just put it in pre-SQL. And similarly, like post-SQL, I want to delete a table after it ran, right? So it's a post-SQL. So I want to delete from, let's say, my schema is src infa. I'll just put a name like t underscore employees, which is my target table. And similarly, you have a SQL override. So SQL override is where you want to pick up some specific rows, or you want to filter some data. You want to put something like this. You can put it here, where you're selecting only a few columns based on some conditions, and like you may have some override query where you want to override the default SQL. So you can put it here in the SQL override. So all of you understood this properties of sources. If I don't specify anything, let's say I just remove this filter. I'll remove the filter, and I'll also remove the sorter.
Shiva,
Yeah.
if you do the SQL override, right? So based on the SQL override, data will be retrieved from the table, right?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat
I
that
mean,
again?
if you do the SQL override, so based on
Hmm.
your SQL override, only data will be retrieved, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, this is
So in that
SQL
case, if you
override.
also keep the filter, so it will be conflict, right? So you have to keep either one, right? So correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I'm just giving an example here. How do you do a SQL override? The default SQL is the one that is fired against your database, from the employees table. That's a different thing.
Yeah.
I'm just giving an example of, if you want to have a specific requirement, where you want to run a SQL override, you can um, just pass
Like
that SQL
any
override here.
specific rows, column, or whatever. So
Yeah.
whatever code I put here, so it will take from this kind of like in Informatica Power Center we see like
Hmm.
what is it, in source qualify if we put any SQL, right? Based on that, it retrieves the data. So it is the same work, right?
Yeah, same thing. That's correct. This is the same thing. What we have in the what we have in this Power Center. That's correct.
Power Center.
Yeah. Okay. So if you go to the fields, actually, if you go to fields, so these are the fields that would be picked up from your employees table. We get all the default fields here: employee ID, job ID, first name, last name, address, city, state, postal code, home phone, office phone, email, and everything, right? And you also get this is a source property that I just covered, where I explained about how to import a table from a connection, and you can use a pre-SQL and a post-SQL along with the SQL override. Okay, just click on save, and you want to let's say you want to just call an expression transformation. For example, you want to call some expression, just drag and drop it here. There are two ways to do it. Either you click on the dotted lines. If you click on the dotted lines, you get the list of transformations here in the list provided from the transformation palette. This is called the transformation palette. You pick up a transformation, drag and drop it here, or you can directly click on this dotted lines, and you can select your expression transformation. Okay, for example, in the expression transformation, I may want to do something like I want to let's say I have my first name and last name. I want to concatenate. I want to do some concatenation. I go to my expression transformation again and maximize this, and incoming fields, go to expression and click on this plus, and you get an output field. I want to have an output field as O underscore full name, and this is a string, and I'm giving, let's say I'm giving some value like 30, and I want to configure something. You just click on configure, and you have the built-in functions here where you can call the concatenate function. You just click on all functions, and you can actually go to concat. You just click on concat string 1, string 2. So you say go to your fields again, first name, last name. Just click on add, validate, and click on OK. So you're passing a value called full name into your target. So that's about expression. Expression can be it's a transformation which you perform to do multi when you can do a lot of functions at a row level. You can actually convert your date into sysdate, or you can do multiple things at a row level. You can perform multiple activities. you can do multiple things in the expression transformation. So if you go to the plus icon, right, you get output field, you get variable field, you also get input macro, output macro, which we will discuss about it later, about macros. But you get a output field, you get a variable field here, right, and you can specify the values. So understood, all of you, on this expression transformation?
Shiva, one question, Shiva. So can't we see any
Yeah.
field mapping kind of configuration in the expression transformation? There's something called
Yeah.
that.
Field
Uh,
mapping.
yep, field mappings.
Okay, I'll tell you about it. Like,
Okay. Yeah.
before I go to the field mapping, I'll explain about one more important thing. I mean,
Sure.
I don't want to jump into all things at a time. I want to run a
Okay.
simple job, and then we'll come back and discuss that. Okay.
Sure. Sure.
So
Thanks. Sir.
yeah, the first mapping that we were discussing about is like, a simple load, an Oracle table load from source to a target. I go to my target now. So now I need to configure my target. Again, I have to maximize this, and I need to go to target and click on the connection. And you select, let's say you want to select the same connection as your target. Choose the same connection again and click on select. Now you get an option to choose an existing target, or you want to create at runtime. So click on create new at runtime, and you want to give the name as T_employees. Okay, this is my target table name, which is T_employees. And we'll discuss about field mapping later, but field mapping doesn't apply here because we are not doing any kind of mapping from source to target in this scenario. We are directly populating all the incoming fields into my target table. It's a simple mapping, where you're pulling a data from source and loading into target using an expression. We are only calling a concatenate function. So you just click on save, and your mapping should be valid. And how do you know if it is valid? You get a prompt as mapping was saved, and you get a valid symbol here. And you can also click on this validation. You just click on valid, a prompt saying mapping is valid.
One quick question. I
Okay.
can see just in the
Yeah.
target, right? You just give the target name, so it will auto or it will automatically generate the table in the target table.
That's correct. Yeah, it is going to create the target table in the database. The connection that we pointed.
Shiva, can you
Okay.
please check that? I mean, can you please make us a view on the properties of target table, if you don't mind?
In the target table, right?
Yeah.
See,
Yeah. We have given target name, but there is no need to mention the field names over here. So it will
no, not
automatically.
required. Not required.
Okay.
Automatically, the fields get populated. That is what I told, right? You need to
Oh.
when you click on select, right? You get two options. One is either you choose an existing target or you create new at runtime. Okay.
Okay.
So I have taken create new at runtime. So what does it do is it is going to take the target fields coming from my incoming from my
So
downstream transformation. Like target fields are not available, you have not specified the target object, or you have chosen to create a new target object. And again, if I go to field mapping, you get a prompt. Fields will be mapped automatically as you have chosen to create a new target object when you run the mapping task. You understood? So what did I do?
Will
I have
give
taken,
all the columns to the target table, right?
that's correct. It is going to take all the columns to your target table. Yeah.
I just took a sync of source table into the target, but only thing is we have
Mhm.
renamed while creating the target itself. It's a dynamic creation of target table at runtime.
This is not dynamic, this is a static file name. I'll tell you about dynamic later. Okay, this is a
Okay.
static target.
The only thing
See,
is
we have two
runtime we
things
have
here.
given target name. That's it.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
again, the dynamic file name is not applicable for Oracle, for a
Okay.
database. I'll tell
Okay.
you about it later. Dynamic.
So if I understood
Okay.
correctly, this is just a runtime environment where we have, I mean, this is just like during runtime we have created target table. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Shiva, I just have one question. So we are creating a table, right? So under which schema does it create? Because we haven't specified schema anywhere here, right?
Uh, can you just give me 1 minute? 1 minute hold.
Hello?
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that again? You were asking something?
Yeah, so Shiva, what I was asking is, so we are creating table at runtime, right? But like,
Yeah.
does under which schema does it create? We haven't mentioned the schema name anywhere, right here.
No. Schema name is not required. You just need to provide the connection. The schema is already taken from the connection itself. What did I do? I have taken the connection here, right? I have given the connection name and I gave the static table name directly in the connection. Got it? So
Yeah. Okay.
you understood, right? So to be very simple, right? And let me uh, given clear understanding about Power Center and IICS, right? What are the differences? Like in Power Center you have a mapping. In IICS also we have a mapping. In Power Center you have a session. In IICS what we have is we have a mapping task, or we also call as mapping configuration task or mapping task. Okay, so we only need a mapping configuration task to run the job. We don't need to create a workflow here. You understood? So I created a mapping. Now what I need to do, I need to create a mapping configuration task. So what I do is there are two ways to do it. I copy the mapping name, click on these three dots here, and click on new mapping task. Okay, click on the new mapping task, and then you need to provide the mapping name in the mapping task. Just give please follow the proper naming conventions. Give a MCT underscore mapping name. MCT stands for mapping configuration task. You need to choose your runtime environment, local secure agent group, click on next. And the second tab is about scheduling. We'll discuss about it later. That's okay. And click on finish. So we just created a mapping configuration task, mapping task that we would be running. So this is a simple mapping with the query options that I had from my pre-SQL and post-SQL. So what is my pre-SQL and post-SQL? In the advanced options, right? I'm inserting some value into the table. And also I'm doing a delete, post the data is loaded. So this is how it works. So we'll run the mapping configuration task now. And before I run it, I'll keep my monitor service also open.
Shiva, I mean, can you just repeat one more time? What you just did, like mapping configuration task, like just copy and paste.
Yeah. So what
Is it
did I do is I copied the mapping name. To run
Mhm.
your mapping, you need a mapping task. A mapping
Okay.
task is having some properties where you define on how do you want your job to run, define different properties. You can schedule the properties. You can do multiple things. So you can even run a standalone mapping, but that is not recommended. You're not supposed to run just the mapping alone, but you can run it. It's not the case you can't run it. You can even run a mapping, but in real time, you only run a mapping configuration task. You don't run a mapping alone. Okay, so that's
on the mapping
create
configuration.
the mapping configuration.
So it will run multiple mapping if you have.
No, not multiple mappings. See,
Like under
for every
one.
mapping,
Mm-hmm.
for every mapping, you need to associate a task to it. To run the mapping, you need to have a mapping configuration task. Okay, so what
Okay.
is this mapping configuration task doing? It is actually taking the input of your mapping and it would run, right? So it is taking the mapping name and the location where it is and the updated date and the other options. You have multiple options here. So it takes all the input values and it would run that, right? Okay, so let me run this mapping and I'll
How
show
did you
you.
get the mapping configuration task?
Okay, let me explain you one more time. Say I just copied this mapping name, right? And I click on the three dots here. You get new mapping task. Okay, or you can go to new task and select mapping task. You can select your mapping task from this panel also. You understood? All of you understood this?
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's go to mapping configuration task and I'll run this. Click on run. And if you go to monitor, you would see that, in the running jobs, it is the starting state. It would go to starting state and you can even see the same job running in your my jobs. Under your my jobs, you will see that, it is in the starting state. And, the moment you click on your refresh, just click on refresh. From starting, it will go to queued status, and from queued status, it will go to running status. You get a prompt saying updates available. Now it is running. If you want to see the properties, you click on this instance name. You click on the instance name, and the moment you click on the instance name, you would see the statistics of your source and targets. Okay, so we get an error saying number of bound columns exceeds the number of results columns. Probably it could be a reason where we're having the number of columns. So probably we'll just do a simple mapping initially. We'll take out the source qualifier. Sql override. Just run this alone. So I just did some change. I just did some change here, right? And I don't have to do the changes in the mapping configuration task because the changes would automatically get reflected in my mapping task. I don't have to refresh it. If I do some changes in my mapping and just save it, my mapping task would automatically pick up those changes. Click on run, go to your my jobs again. Just keep refreshing this and you would see this running status, and once it is loaded to your target, you'll find all the columns. Okay, failed. Okay, probably that value already exists, in that table. So we are getting an error here saying, the database error. Insert into this values as failed because of some violation. Right? So
Just,
we can go back to the
take the
mapping.
insert out.
So probably we can remove the pre-SQL statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can just give some random things. I'll just give some different value, right? And just save this because 2119 may be existing in the target in the table. So probably that could be a reason where it is failing. So I just did the change. Let me run it one more time. So you get a status as starting success or failure, with the error, and you can even download the session log to identify and troubleshoot, what went wrong with that run, the job run. Typically, like, if you do it perfectly, if you do it rightly with all the steps, then you should see the job in succeeded status. Okay, you should be able to see, and you get a prompt here as, you know, updates available, which means that, you know, it is completed. Now we got a success, right? So I just click on this mapping configuration task, and you would see the task name, instance ID. For every instance, there would be an ID, task type, and, you know, these things. So how do you know you have done it rightly? Click on the download session log. Click on the download session log, and, you know, your log would open. Just click on open the log. You can open here, and you would see the, you know, pre-SQL and post-SQL, right? You can see the pre-SQL and post-SQL. Just go to, scroll down, start load session. You know, just go to start load session, and you would see that, you know, there is a query here that is issued to your database with your SRC INFA schema, employees table, and, you know, you also get a pre-SQL and post-SQL. Let's see the pre-SQL. Like probably, you know, just verify it here. One moment. Yeah, see the pre-SQL, executing pre-SQL for the source, insert into SRC INFA these values, right? And these values got inserted into the table. I just gave some random values, and the tables got inserted. I mean, the values got inserted, and, you know, your post-SQL again after the job is completed, right? So it would also run a post-SQL to actually delete what was it we gave? I think we gave delete from SRC INFA t.employees, right? So for example, if I want to query, select start from t_employees. I don't have the data because it is, you know, deleted the data. All of you understood this?
So you load and delete also. Same table?
Sorry?
When you load to the target table and after loading you also deleted.
Yeah, correct. Because we had a post-SQL. We had a post-SQL
And
in my mapping property, right? So
yeah,
after it loaded and inserted, it also did the deletion. So this is how you work on a pre-SQL and post-SQL.
yeah, and
You
one more
understood?
thing, Shiva.
Yeah.
In Power Center, I think there is an option we can see the properties and we can see how many data have been loaded. So is there anything like, you know, in IICS we can see the properties to see how many data went through or passed through or rejected without going to log?
Yeah, you mean to say the values, like, you know?
You know, in the Power Center, once we run, right, there's option like if you go to the monitor, you right click and there's option like, you know, session run property, session log. If you click
Yeah,
this,
this is how, you know, what we have seen, right? In the property, these are the properties. Okay, these are the properties. The moment you see
okay,
my jobs, right?
success load
You click
showing.
on the
Okay,
instance name. Correct. This is the instance name. You click on the instance name, and you get the entire properties with the source, success rows, and target success rows. You get the entire
gotcha.
information about, you know, which secure agent it ran, and what is like, you know, what is it's all about, you know. You can download the session log. You can do multiple things here. Okay.
So
Fine.
Shiva, now the screen means it read 20 rows and successfully loaded to target, right? Suppose
That's
if
correct.
it fails and if the rows get rejected, will they be captured under errors or how is it?
Yeah, correct. Under my jobs, see, we had two failure scenarios, right? So you get a
Hmm.
prompt saying it is failed, and, you know, you want to know why it failed. You can just click on the download log here, and you can see the reason also. You can actually download the log itself in this uh, UI itself. You know, you can download the session log. Like you get a
And
database driver error. Yeah.
yeah, and like when I mean I know, but like when we download the session log and read it, right? Is there any way like we can read it properly, Shiva? So now suppose see this is failed, we don't know where exactly is the issue, right? So after downloading the session log, how can we exactly know what went wrong?
Yeah, I mean, see, at the moment, you know, you don't even have to go into the session log actually. You know, you can directly click on, either you go to, for example, you go to all jobs in your monitor screen. You can find it here also, the monitor screen or in the data integration under my jobs. For example, I click on this instance name. Okay, I get a prompt here with the error message saying, okay, this is the error because it is not able to, there is a unique constraint violation. Okay, you get a unique constraint violation here, and you have to fix it, and before you run
Yeah,
it
but
for the next time.
yeah, understood, Shiva. Here it is simple, okay. But in real time, when we are working, right, few times we get some DTM error, something like that, but we will not get to know the exact error. So in such cases, how do we go to the log and find out the error?
Okay, see, I told you, right, you need to download session log, or the other way to do it is you go to the mapping configuration task. If you want to find more at a detail level, right, at a detail level, what you're supposed to do is you click on the mapping configuration task, click on edit, and you can enable, yeah, are you asking about tracing? Tracing, like, where you want to see the detail level of information at a row level? You can enable
Uh,
verbose. You can
yeah,
enable
yeah. I
verbose mode.
mean, this is just like the power center one, right? Verbose data,
Yeah,
verbose,
correct.
such
Standard
thing.
and verbose. You have an execution mode. By default, we get a standard, execution, but we can also enable verbose mode at a mapping configuration task level, or if you want to see something at an object level, even you can enable, verbose data here at a source level, or you want to enable at a expression level or target. You get this options here. Not target, sorry, but again, this expression, if you want to enable something here, you can also do that. Under advanced properties, you get tracing level to verbose data, which is going to pile up huge amount of data. That's going to cause space issues, right? So we don't do it.
So this will give me
Generally,
the
we don't
complete
do it.
information like row by row, right?
Yeah, correct. It is going to give you the information about row by row. And the best part of, IICS is you can actually, uh, you go to source, and I've told you, like, you can preview the data here. For example, if I go to expression and go to my preview, right? You want to run preview at your expression, click on run preview, and this is going to give you the preview of the logic, the exact thing that you want to see at a transformation level. For example, I want to preview only 10 rows. Click on run preview. So what does it do is it is going to give you a preview of expression at a design level. How does it look at a design level with your expression transformation?
Is this like a
So
mapping debugger kind of a thing?
Yeah, see, we don't have a specific debugger in IICS, but this is how you debug things. When you are stuck with something, where you run a preview, and sometimes it doesn't support, right? Sometimes it doesn't support depending on the logic that you have, or depending on some things where you can preview all the columns, or you can preview only few things. We don't have
Mean,
anything, just
so,
select something and run debugger kind of things. Yeah.
so Shiva, you mean like in the expression, like before loading to the target, I'm just examining my preview data in the expression, right? Like which is coming from the source, especially, right?
Yeah. So expression, I gave some value in my expression where it is concatenating first name and last name, right? So
Yeah,
I give
because
a value somewhere, and I want to run a preview to see how it is showing up. I can still do it. Okay. So this is about in a simple mapping, where we loaded. Just keep closing all these windows, because it's not recommended to keep multiple windows. So we just had a mapping, and we created a mapping configuration task and this dashboard, right? This home page where you would be seeing the assets. These are called assets. These are all called assets, where you created a mapping. You created a mapping configuration task. Okay. Now we'll also work on.
Usually run the
Yeah.
mapping configuration task only, right? Sorry to
Sorry.
cut off. So when we run, we just run the mapping configuration task, right?
Yeah. Correct. We ran the mapping configuration task, but we create a mapping, and then we associate that mapping to a task.
Shiva, I could see that the mapping went fine and it has been a success actually. So,
Hmm.
but post SQL we have dropped the records from our target table. Okay, so but
Yeah,
still
yeah,
the properties was showing as a target success was 20. So it's unlike
yeah.
inform.
That's correct. Yeah, that it would show, because the
Okay,
reason is it doesn't it's showing you the load of the data, but it doesn't show you the information about that the table got truncated, right? It doesn't show up that, because the reason is it was a PostSQL. PostSQL, you won't be able to see the data when you query in the database, but you can. This is how the properties would look, because it's going to
okay.
show you the initial load. Yeah,
So if I'm not wrong, I mean like the 20 records what we have mentioned was that those are the filter conditions for HA, right?
yeah,
So
correct.
that satisfies the
That's
condition.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can even verify it. I'll just go back to the mapping again, and for example, I go to my source properties, and I'll just go to the source again and go to the advanced. I'll delete this, save it again. Okay. Now, for example, like now in the case we have the table. I mean, we just truncated the table, right? But we just go to the target again, copy this mapping name, click on select. We only truncated the data, but the table has been created. So now we can choose existing target. Okay. So when you
So
have
in
taken the
target,
existing target, right?
so in target also
Yeah.
we have PSQL, right?
Sorry.
So in target side also we will have pre-SQL and post-SQL, right? Before load and after load to drop some indexes or recreate the indexes and all.
Yeah, in the advanced properties, right? You have pre-SQL, post-SQL, and update override here in the target
Okay.
side also.
Okay.
Okay. So the moment you
So
selected this, right, and go to field mapping, right, and the field mapping, you get options to automatic or manual. For example, I have taken the automatic, right? Automatically, the fields would get mapped by automatically. It gets to understand about these names. There are a couple of things called. You just click on the options here. You see something called we just go to manual and just click on this arrow here. You get exact field name or you get smart map. There are two options here where if you select smart map, automatically it is going to do a smart map based on the field names that I already have. It takes the exact names with the
But yeah,
starting values,
but still we can drag
right?
and drop the
Yeah, still we
corresponding.
can drag and drop it, but you if you want to drag and drop it, you
Uh-huh.
can just click on the three lines here, click on clear mapping, and you need to change this field map options called manual and automatic.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, manual and
Okay.
automatic, and you just drag and
Drag and
drop.
drop.
For example, you don't need employee ID, job ID, first name,
This is same way
last name.
again how we
Just
did in
drag and
Power
drop it.
Center. Yep.
Yeah, it is similar like what you do in Power Center, but again, the only thing is the only
Yeah,
difference
there
in
we
Power
have
Center
links
and
actually.
cloud is
Yeah, there we have
here
links.
you have to, yeah, you have the links, but you have to get into the properties here. You can't see it outside.
Right,
That
right.
is the only thing in cloud. In cloud, what you have to do is you need to expand the target, go to field mapping, and then you need to, if you want to manually do it, you just drag and drop it here, or other ways, you directly do an auto map, or by smart map or something. If you want to unmap or something, you can just click on this two lines here. You can unmap a field also. And one more important thing what I would like to explain today is, for example, I have configured my source here, right? I configured my source and I get my fields based on the table that I have selected. For example, I don't want all the fields. I need only like employee ID, job ID, first name, last name, address one. Let's say I don't need all the other fields. What I need to do, I have to check all this, right? And let's say, I want to uncheck the fields that I want to retain. Last name, address. For example, I want to retain only these fields. I don't want all these fields, right? Just click on delete. So I get only employee ID, job ID, first name, last name, and address in my source. I don't need all the fields. And let's say you want to have something like, you want to synchronize something as added from your table. You want to sync something. Just click on synchronize. And you just click on all fields or new fields. For example, you have some new fields added to your table. You can click on synchronize. That would allow you to synchronize all your fields or new fields. For example, I select all fields, click on synchronize. Now I get it back. So this is checking the fields from my table, and I would get all the fields back again. Okay, all of you understood this?
Yeah, so this is much
If I
easier
have
than
to,
going back and reselecting the object again, right, Shiva?
correct. So this is much easier, you directly click on synchronize, you just synchronize, and if you have new fields added, just select your new fields and just click on synchronize, you get the new fields added here. Okay, and there are few other things called field rules. For example, I go to my expression transformation. In my expression, I don't need some fields. There are something called include and exclude operator, and you also get a field selection criteria. So this is a default option. Okay, include all fields, and if you want to add a rule, click on this plus icon here, and you just click on, put your mouse here and select exclude. For example, I want to exclude some named fields. Okay, I just select exclude named fields, click on configure, and for example, the same thing what I did, I just select everything by default, and I want to let's say I want to retain the first name, last name, job ID, my address. I want to retain this. Click on OK.
This is
So
just
I'm
something like,
excluding 8 fields here.
yep,
Yeah,
this is just something like if you in between the transformations after source, if you don't want the fields to be populated to the target, yeah, we can do the same way.
correct.
What you mentioned, yep, yep.
That's correct. Yeah. So you have included fields as only 4 fields and excluded fields as you get all these fields here. Okay, you get all these fields, but you have to. There are few fields which are kind of mandatory fields that you have to map. So you need to make sure you do it right way. For example, you don't want to exclude anything. You can't have you can't have. I mean, you can't have both rules deleted. That is not possible. You can only delete one of the rule. For example, I want to delete this rule and include all the fields. I get all the fields by default. This is a default option. But I want to exclude something, you just click on plus. But don't delete these rules. The default rule, don't delete the default rule, which is by default, which is coming with all your incoming fields coming from your source. You want to exclude something, just select exclude, and you get name fields, fields by data types, and fields by text or pattern. For example, I want to exclude fields by data types. Click on configure. I want to exclude date time data fields. Click on OK. Now if I have a date time data field, I get that field excluded in this table, right? And similarly, for example, if I want to exclude with some text or pattern, you click on fields by text or pattern, click on configure, and for example, you want to click a prefix, and you want to put some pattern like src underscore. You may have field name conflicts. Okay, fine then. All of you understood this? This is
Yeah.
how it would be there for for IICS. You have this option, and you don't need all the fields to be taken to your target, right? So you can take it to your target. You don't need all the fields. You understood? Okay, so in the expression transformation, we did not had any kind of any rule. Did we had a rule? No. Okay, we'll delete this rule. Now we did a if you want to just arrange it, click on this grid icon, click on save.
Sorry, Siva. So in each transformation we will have field mapping or only in target?
Only in target actually. Target, yeah.
Okay.
Only in target transformation you do the field mapping. Okay, you go to target transformation and you get automatic here. Click on save. You're doing a field mapping. If your field mapping is not done, your mapping is not valid. Your mapping will be valid only if you have completed the field mapping. All of you understood?
Shiva, just to double check on that. So don't we have these field mappings in between? I mean, like apart from source and target?
No.
Nowhere?
Field mapping is not possible within your source and target. It is only done at a target level.
Okay, in between
It's
transformations?
automatically mapped, right? See, this is
Okay.
how it is. The source, you have an arrow here to the expression. Automatically, the things would come here to actually your
But
expression. You don't have
but in
to
case
do
if
any
you
field
have
mapping.
multiple, yeah, but in case if you have multiple expressions, I mean, like variable ports we have defined with specific logic, and we want to assign that to different uh, input port. In this case, because for now we
For
don't have any.
example, you haven't variable port. For example, you have a variable port. Click on this plus icon, and let's say you want to assign some value here. V underscore, let's say test some value, and you want to pass some value here. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes, yes. I mean, in Power Center, we used to have multiple expression ports where we will be assigning uh, those values to your
Hmm.
output port. So,
Yeah. For example, I want to just assign this v underscore test, and I want to have one more o underscore test and assign that value as my variable value. That's what he's saying, right? Just click on configure, click on variable test, click on OK. You understood here? So we got output port here. We got output o underscore test.
I was under the
This is what
impression
you're
that
asking.
we used to have, yeah, maybe I was thinking that we do have this
Yeah,
field mapping
you
for
need to
each and
have
every
some
task.
hands-on. You need to have some hands-on so that you can understand this, right? So once you have the output port and variable port, you get all the fields in your target. I just created a o underscore test, right? So you get o underscore test again. Okay, just click on synchronize. I mean, you get target fields, and you also get something called incoming fields, right? So field mapping is a place where you decide which field you want to map to your target. Incoming fields. Now in the incoming fields, we also have the o underscore test here. And in the field mapping, if you go to field mapping, right, then now there is no field for, because we already imported an existing target, right? We don't have a field called o underscore test. You understood? This is an existing target, a target that we imported as an existing target. So we don't have o underscore test, so you can't map it.
Right, right.
You understood? Okay, so this is a mapping. Let me run this task. Click on this mapping configuration task. So automatically the changes would get reflected to your task. Just click on run, and again you go to my jobs, and you will see the rows loaded. Just click on refresh here. Okay, it failed. Same error again. Okay, same error again. Try it again. Right in the source advanced properties, because of some violation, this failed. So you can just change it to some value again.
Yeah, because you have already ran it, right? That record has already existing in the
Yeah,
source. So,
correct. Yeah, that's right. So if you have to do some change, just come back to your mapping and do the change, and you can run your mapping again, your mapping configuration task again. Just click on restart. Click on restart, and go to my jobs again, or you go to monitor. If you go to monitor, you'll be seeing in the running jobs, right? You get multiple jobs here, with instance name. and you get the rows processed, and you just refresh things here, you would get it. So you got 21 rows processed. Now, if you just query the things, query the target table, you would see all the records here. Okay, understood? So I also want to cover a flat file scenario. I'll take another 5 minutes, right? And we'll be good to close for the day, right? Any questions from anyone on this?
Did you remove that PostgreSQL during the second time?
Yeah, I removed the PostgreSQL, correct.
Okay, yeah.
So we'll create one more mapping. Click on create. Okay, now this mapping is, reading your, let's say your customer file, customer central file, using, to remove some duplicates. Okay, so I go to my source. You just maximize this, select your flat files connection, and just click on select. Select your customer central file. So I have a lot of files inside my flat file location where I configure this connection. So this is a file that I want to pick up, which is having duplicate rows, customer central underscore dupe.txt. You want to look at that file, right? Okay, so I have these values here, maybe around, I think, 2179 rows, where I have some duplicate values, which I wantedly, duplicated. I had a duplicate scenario. So now in my customer central duplicate file, now this is simple things, probably someone from Power Center background, they can relate it very easily. But, someone who is new, maybe, I'll just, for the interest of their understanding, I'll explain. So I'll just put a sorter to sort the data on, the fields. Like, for example, I have unique values. These are the values that I identify, which is my dealership ID, region, and let's say customer number. These are the unique values. These are the values that would uniquely identify the row. So I select these three columns, and then I can even have an aggregator here. Just drag and drop an aggregator. And if you want to undo something, you have an option called redo or undo. You want to click on undo, just click on this undo option, right? And you want to redo something, click on redo. So we just did a arrange all, so it did a redo again. An aggregator, you can specify the group by again, just selecting your field names, the same field names again. Just save it. And in the target, right? And go to target. Now I want to create a target. I have taken the flat file connection and click on select. Now you get an option to choose an existing target or create at runtime, create new at runtime. And now you get two more options where you want to choose a dynamic file name. Now static file name is a name that I gave, but I want to select a dynamic file name. I select my user dynamic file name, and you can select some of your field names, or you can select your system variables. For example, I want to take my current task name, right? Current task name, just click on add. For example, I want to concatenate with my current run ID. Then I want to concatenate with my field value as a dealership ID or region. For example, I want to put region, put a region here, concatenate again. And single quotes, I want to specify the file extension. For example, I want to have it as .csv. Just put .csv, close your single quotes, click on validate. So you're creating a dynamic file name here. Okay, understood all of you? You're creating a dynamic file name from the system variables and also the fields that you have taken here. Yeah.
Can you just tell a little bit about the dynamic file and the static file? Like, I forgot this too. What's the difference?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I
Can
mean,
you repeat that again?
yeah, I mean, if you can tell me a little bit about the dynamic difference between dynamic and static file here.
Yeah, the difference between dynamic file name and the static file name is, dynamic is where you actually create it on the fly, right? And on the fly, using some system variables. You have some system variables within Informatica where you specify the property, and you can actually concatenate depending on your business need. You can have a dynamic file name coming from your incoming fields, whereas a static file name is an actual name that you give for your target table, target file. Okay, the target file is customer central underscore dup.txt. I can give a static file name like tgt underscore customer central .csv. That is a static file name, but I have use a dynamic file name because I want to specify some properties coming from a field names or the system variables itself. Okay, this is how, depending on your need, you can specify these properties. That's the difference between dynamic and static file names. Understood?
So Shiva, this is something like in the Power Center, we have an option to add the standard field, right? Like at the target. So do we have something like that here also, so that we can map our expression generated field to that particular field in the target?
See, in IICS, you get this two options here. When you click on select, right? Just click on select. You get two options here. So the target properties, these are the only options that you would see where you get formatting options where you want to specify a delimiter or a text qualifier. Okay, and your dynamic file name. The moment I selected this, I got this window. Okay, so you have these
Okay, but
options, where, yeah.
yeah, so but now if when the file is generating, right? So it will be generated with this particular name. That is what it is, right? My doubt was in the Power Center we had one property. I forgot its name, but when we add on that property, there will be one field that will be generated automatically. So we write this value in the previous step at the expression level and map that field to this particular field in the target. That is how like we will do, right, in the Power Center. So I just wanted to correlate.
Yeah, that's correct. That's not required, I guess.
Length stuff?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, is it like yeah? Carl was mentioning some. Are you talking about like fixed length? Is this one the Power Center?
Yeah, in Power Center, see, I understand your question, right? In Power Center, you probably you take some value from a previous transformation and you pass it on to the target, and you generate a dynamic file, target file. But again, that is not required. If you have something coming from your incoming source, incoming or downstream transformation, you get it here in this fields, and you actually generate those values using your system variables. You just concatenate things here, and it would get populated with that value that you specify.
So in the
Okay, let me run this.
you don't have that option, right?
Sorry.
In the if you choose the statics, you will not get that option, right? Like, that you're doing here, like in dynamic file, like concatenation and all.
Yeah, in expression transformation, we won't get that. That specific. For example, I want to put expression before my target here. Okay, in expression transformation, I just click on this, go to expression, maximize it. In the expression transformation, you don't have an option to choose anything called dynamic here. You can only specify an output field or an input or a variable field or a macro, input macro or output macro. But you don't have anything like kind of dynamic field here. I mean, you specify some property which you want to take it to your target, and only in the target you have a dynamic field name. I mean, dynamic file name here. So I gave a dynamic file name here. Okay. So let me run this and I'll explain it to you. Now I don't have a task name here, right? So this is my target name that I'm giving with the task name, run ID, region, and CSV. Okay, concatenate with CSV value. So this is a value that I'm giving. So I'll just make a note of this. I go to these three dots and click on, first thing is you have to copy the mapping name. Click on these three dots, new mapping task, and you get a box here. Just give MCT underscore, and click on this local secure agent group. Click on next, finish. Okay, and you get this. Just click on run. Go to my jobs. Okay, so we got this is success, and we got the current task name, current run ID, region.csv. And how do you know the file name? Go to your folder and just click on date modified. You see that this has come with this value called mcd m underscore customer central remove duplicates, which is my mapping configuration task, concatenate with my region.csv, which is a file extension. So I got the file name like that. You understood? I got the file name on the property that I specified in my target. Is that clear? You understood this?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So any questions from anyone on these properties that we discussed? Source properties and the mapping field rules and the files here, the file load. All of you understood this? So as I discussed, right, I'll be discussing about, I'll be covering the advanced topics, while we progress, because not everyone is from the power center background, or, we have to make sure the balance is being maintained here. So what I do is I start with the, the basic things, and then we move on to the couple of advanced topics at a later point of time. So these are the topics that I'll be discussing, where we will be discussing about synchronizations. We'll discuss about a replication task. We'll discuss about some transformations, hierarchy parser, hierarchy builder. There are a few topics which would be covered. Everything will be done with the real time. I mean, not a real time, but sorry, the data that I have with the sample environment, which is close to where you can correlate to real time. Because we are not working on the actual data; it's all sample data that we are working on.
So Shiva, I just wanted one thing. Like, if you don't mind, can you give us, whatever you had, the queries and all those things, right? At least for reference, so that we can go back and maybe we can modify little and practice from our ends.
Yeah.
That would be
I'll
great if
be
you could
sharing
provide.
the entire. So what I'll do is, see, what I do is, I have everything in a document, right? So I put it in a document, and I'll send it to you. Like, these are the ones that are covered, and you just have to refer to this. I'll put it everything in a document,
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
and
or
not only
I
that,
can even
also the
upload it in the
materials you will
drive
show.
location. Yeah, I can even upload in the drive location so that you can pick it up. There are topics like file listeners, and there are topics like intelligent structure parser. There are a few things in Informatica Cloud. When you click on new, you get multiple options where you create not only just mapping task, you get synchronization task, masking task. We probably masking tasks we cannot do it because we don't have the license. The license won't allow to do masking task. Replication task, power center task, data transfer task. And if you go to the mappings here, this is a generic thing, maplets. task flows. This is a huge topic, where I would be explaining the entire process flow of a simple task flow to a linear task flow, parallel tasks, and also the components where we would create a business service for invoking a web service transformation. We have, intelligent structure model. We'll be working on XML files and JSON files. So this is a entire, 30 hours training program, right? So we just completed the second day today. Yesterday was the initial day, where we had, I'll be providing the entire drive location, so that you can access it. You can access and download all the files. See, I'll tell you like, what I planned. I'll just give you an example here. So I have a status here. So this was done for students, so that, they get to give the completed status. But this is even good for you. I'm not tracking that you're doing it or not. But again, this is for your own good. If you want to track it, you can do it by yourself. So this is how I track things, so that, you get a detailed understanding of the topics that are covered. So first thing is these are day one that are completed. The secure agent status, and you have to make sure you have an Oracle instance up and running, and you can create Oracle connections via flat file, Salesforce, and we discussed about these things now. So we'll discuss about pre and post SQL, and also I think we don't have time, but I want to discuss about pre-processing and post-processing. Tomorrow we'll discuss that. Okay. So I have the entire set of things here. Yeah.
A quick question regarding synchronization task. So, as and when there are changes available in the source table, so all of them will be getting reflected in the target table automatically, or
Yeah,
how it?
correct. The synchronization task, when you create a task, you also get an option to actually schedule them. You have an inbuilt scheduler in Informatica Cloud, and you can have the job run on a schedule. And the synchronization task will ensure the data is synced between your source and target, and you get options to either update or upsert. Upsert, there is a functionality called upsert, where you can update it or insert the data using
So maybe it
synchronization
is
task.
kind of bad job, right? Uh,
Yeah,
If I want to have
bad job.
the real-time data reflected between the source and target, then how do we do that?
Real
If
time.
I mean, if the changes reflected at this point of time, if I want to have the changes immediately to the target table, how do we do that? I mean,
Yeah,
I need to have the real-time data in the target table. That's what I'm
you
just
need to
checking
have
with
the
you.
real time data in the target table. See, synchronization task. Majorly, it supports the batch jobs actually. Where you define something with the source and target. You have a data filter, field mapping, and you schedule it. To so that you have a task operation for insert, update, or upsert. Right? You have a functionality here.
Okay.
But on real time, I'm not sure because I haven't got a chance to work on the real time synchronization task. Probably,
Hmm.
we'll have to look into something at the cloud application integration side to see how it works.
Probably
Okay.
that could be part of application integration, right, Shiva?
Yeah,
Real
yeah.
time.
That can be an application integration where it's talks more about real time.
That
But
talks about
that's a problem is where you won't get access to. I mean, you need a lot of access to the real time environment. Like you need a URL access. You need some credentials. You need to have things where it can be integrated with a CDI jobs. When I say CDA, CAA, we can create a job and you can integrate and invoke a synchronization task from cloud application integration. Also, you can do it, which I'll be
Okay.
discussing later. How to do that.
Yeah,
But
we are doing that in
I don't know
beta
about
stage.
synchronization task because, frankly speaking, I haven't got a chance to work on real-time synchronization. It's
Okay.
only like
Yeah.
batch job. Yeah.
So it looks like
Okay.
is it like one-to-one kind of mapping, the synchronization task? I don't see any other transformation when you open.
No, there are a couple of things that you can do the transformations also in this synchronization task. Okay, for example, I had a synchronization task, which I created. I'll just show you that example. Okay, so This was about my employee data. The employee data, I just click on, I'll just show you this. Okay, I think we are running out of time. We'll just take the last 2 minutes, or I'll just cover this quick. So what is the synchronization task is doing is, it's taking my source from my EMP file, which I have taken from my EMP Scott schema. And this is my flat file connection where I have my emp.csv file, and I want to sync that source to my target. So I get a next step as target, and target, where I define my target, where I want to sync the same table. That's only an example. In real time, you should have the same structure actually. For example, I have taken this connection Scott here in EMP table is what I've taken. And in the data filters, the second option, step number 4, these are called different steps actually. Step number 4 would be your data filters. If you want to put any filter, click on new data filter. You select your source and you want to filter some expression, you can just put something like this, where commission, for example, commission is not null or is null, something like that. You just put these things on data filters. And you also get a field mapping, and you can do a lot of things in the field mappings. I mean, you can do things like you can edit types here. If you want to look up something, you want to do some kind of expression. Okay, I'll tell you about all this at a later point of time. Okay, I'll tell you about all these steps. So thank you for joining today's session, and we'll continue our sessions. We'll meet up again tomorrow at 7 a.m. Anyone is having any questions before we wind up?
Do you have any class Saturday, Sunday?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any class Saturday and Sunday? Just 5 days in?
No, not on Saturday, not on Sunday. Sunday, we don't have classes. We'll have classes for 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Fine. So thank you. Thanks for joining, and we'll meet again tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.